Hello and welcome to another Coach Chrysler's Conversations. We are here today with Nicholle. How are you today, Nicholle?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the Convo. But before we get to talking specifically about your health journey, tell everyone that's watching who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Nicholle Chandler. I am from a tiny town called Skagway, Alaska, just north of the capital of Alaska. If you've ever taken a cruise, you've probably been to my little tiny town. And I, for the last 21 years, have owned retail stores, and in the last 2 years have become a national board certified health and wellness coach. And yeah, so I own Colby Coaching, and I coach young entrepreneurs, high achievers who are looking to achieve, but not burn out in the process. And yeah, I hold one-on-one coaching and group coaching as well.
Fantastic. So Alaska, wow, that's a long way from Texas and definitely different worlds.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is your favorite thing about living in Alaska?
Well, one of my top values is community and connection, and I thrive off of knowing my neighbors. So I live in a town of 800, and I live alone. So it's nice to know my neighbors, and I teach at the library. I'm sorry, it cut out. What did you say there?
Oh, I was just saying that is small.
Yeah, it's very small. Yeah. So I teach at the library. I teach at the rec center fitness classes, and I like that I can walk outside and know my neighbors. It feels a little bit like Mr. Rogers here. Everyone kind of takes care of each other.
Yeah.
If someone's sick, we hold a fundraiser if they don't have insurance. It's just a very close knit community. And since that's one of my top values, I really enjoy it. I mean, there are disadvantages, like when I go down south and I walk into a big grocery store, I'm like, look at all this fresh produce, because it's really hard to get good quality food here. So, there are some downsides to it, but for the most part, I really, really love feeling safe in my community and really connected to them.
Awesome. That sounds so lovely and refreshing, just to be able to be connected to other people, especially since you live alone and whatnot. So yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So let's turn our attention to your coaching and kind of your health journey as well. Tell me a little bit about how you got into coaching.
Yeah. So I just recently sold my store. So I'm saying it like it's the past, but I literally shut my doors 2 weeks ago. But I was an owner of 2 retail stores for 21 years. And that meant hiring and firing and having a crew of up to 15 people at any given time. It also housed them. So my stores were my career, but also like my baby, because I took care of these people. I brought them in from down south. I housed them. I made sure they were having a good summer. And about 7 years into my career, I started just having some health issues. One of them was a lot of anxiety. And then I went into a very deep depression for about 7 years. I also had chronic heartburn, and like all these just kind of like weird little things that started to add up to a big thing. And then I was shortly after a year of chronic heartburn, I mean, waking up from morning till night. Ooh, that was painful. I just always had it. I went to the doctor and they said I had a disease called eosinophilic esophagitis. Very big tongue twister word there.
Yes, that's a lot of syllables.
Yeah, it's a lot of syllables. It took me a while to get it down, but you can call it EOE for short. And basically what that means is my white blood cells attack my esophagus when I eat certain foods. Now, I could have had it a lot worse. There's some people who need a feeding tube. I was, I just had to figure out my food triggers. But in that process, my gastroenterologist, who is a Western medicine doctor, nothing against Western medicine. If I get in a car accident, I want them to put me back together. But she just kept handing me heartburn medicines and steroids for my esophagus and telling me I'd have to take these for the rest of my life. That was really hard for me to hear, because I was already on medication for depression and anxiety. And I was like, I feel like I'm becoming a medicine cabinet. And I didn't like that. So I said, well, what are the alternatives? And she said, well, you have to figure out your food triggers. But I had 24/7 symptoms. I mean, I was tired, sick, heartburn, throat pain, anxious all the time. So long story short, I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And I flew to Bali just because I found a retreat there. It could have been anywhere in the world that I did this, but flew to Bali and I detoxed my body for 14 days. And that's when I found functional medicine and alternative medicine, and what I would call Eastern medicine in some respects.
Interesting. So you went all the way to Bali to find what you needed, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being right here at home. Wow, that's very interesting. So tell me more about that experience.
Yeah. So I got there and I knew that they were going to take away food for 14 days. And that was good for me because my body needed a reset to kind of get back to zero eosinophils, white blood cells. And then I would slowly start bringing the food back in. But it was pretty intense, right? Like it's, they started me on 2 days of smoothies and then 10 days with no food and then 2 days smoothies back in, and with enemas and a colon cleanse and parasite cleansing. I mean, it was like, oof, but best thing I ever did for my body. Not only did I learn my trigger foods by bringing food slowly back in, I also found that my diet was highly saturated with sugar. Like I thought I was eating an American diet, but as you know, most yogurts and most foods are just full of sugar. And I was really unaware of how much sugar I was consuming. And and lo and behold, I had a huge candida overgrowth on top of it. So it was like, oh, all these like light bulbs were going off, like no wonder. And so I, after that detox, I was able to, that was in 2015 in the beginning. And by the end of 2015, I was off all prescription meds by changing the way I ate, movement, the way I was thinking before I ate, and talk therapy. So it was a really life-changing experience. And I try to do a fast now once a year to kind of reset if there is some kind of trigger food that got in there just because, you eat out and who knows what they put in there. So yeah, I try to do a fast at home now. I've been back to Bali many times. I consider them family now. And yeah, so that's kind of, and then, so after that, I thought, well, there's something to this, right? Like here I was told I was going to take prescription meds that actually would have done more harm than good in the long run, as we know more about heartburn medicine. And so I was listening to a Mark Hyman podcast, and there was Chris Kresser was a guest on there, and he was talking about functional medicine and the Adapt Functional Medicine Health Coaching Program. So I signed up, and here I am.
Wow, that is incredible. So as you're going through all of these changes while you're in Bali and you're adding foods back in, what kinds of things were you noticing that were triggering, the negative feelings and the symptoms that you were having?
Yeah. So I used to think my diet was pretty clean. Like I thought, oh, I lost 20 pounds counting calories before all of this happened. I thought I knew what I was doing. And one thing that I noticed was I didn't realize how much sugar had a effect on my mental health. I just thought, oh, sugar is a treat. And so after the detox and when I would slowly bring back sweet stuff, not only did my taste buds get kind of reset, everything tasted way more sweet. And I actually kind of felt sick. And I was like, I was kind of bummed actually, that I was like, I don't want to feel sick from eating something sweet, but in actuality, it's been really helpful because I find when I do eat too much sugar today, the next day I'm irritable, I'm a little depressed, my anxiety's back up, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I had a Frappuccino yesterday, or whatever sugary thing that tempted me. So I learned very quickly that sugar was just something that I either had to have in major moderation or not at all for my mental health. I was also told that I have a gene mutation called the MTHFR gene mutation, right? So that was also a huge contribution to some of my depression because I wasn't producing the serotonin and dopamine in my gut because my tryptophan and tyrosine levels were low. So there was a lot that I was like, oh, I wish everyone knew about this knowledge, because if everyone was tested, maybe we could be supplemented correctly, because we're not getting what we need out of food, instead of
Mhm.
being told, here, take, Xanax for the rest of your life, or Paxil, or, nortriptyline, or whatever it is. And so there was just a lot of like, un, taking the onion layers off of like, oh, here's another thing, and here's another thing. And I still feel like I'm learning and growing. But as I was implementing things back into my life, I just really wanted to tune in and listen to my body. One thing I did was I created kind of a habit tracker of trigger things, and then
Mhm.
reported my mood of that day. And that was really insightful as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I think that, what you were saying about sugar is definitely something that people maybe aren't aware of quite as much. I think when we think about having sugar, we automatically go towards cookie, cake, those types of things. But when you actually look at all the things that are sugar, right?
Yeah.
Because when you flip over that label and you start to read and it says, brown rice syrup or agave or whatever it says on there, it may not say sugar,
Right.
it may say
Exactly.
dextrose or, something that, you aren't aware is actually sugar. So, there's multiple things in there that I think, people really need to be aware of
Yeah.
when we talk about sugar.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you can't have any, right? Because there's sugar just naturally in a lot of different foods.
Yeah.
But it is the excess and it's the constant over and over and over again.
Right.
And then something else you mentioned was that, we kind of treat ourselves, right? It's like we have something and, it's like, oh, I'm happy, but we do it for everything. I'm happy, I'm sad, you're having a baby, let's celebrate, you got a
Yeah.
new job, you lost your job, all of these different things. And so it's all, kind of snowballs into this consistent practice of constantly having sugar. And so, we really need to be cognizant of that because it does have an effect on us, especially in the long term.
Absolutely. I'm actually I just became a food addiction certified coach. And one of the things we talk about is the culture and how we use food as celebration, and
Mhm.
how, food makes things fun. And so it's really just coming back to your core values around what you want your food relationship to look like,
Mhm.
and trying your hardest to stick to it, right? Because it is hard. It's not
Yeah.
easy. Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
wonderful documentary out there called That Sugar Film.
Mm.
And it's an Australian-based documentary where the man says, I'm going to go on an American diet that is supposed to be healthy. So he doesn't necessarily go and drink soda or, eat ice cream and Snicker bars, but he goes and eats like yogurts and granola bars and protein bars. And he ends up gaining a ton of weight. And, he has all of his vitals monitored. And it's really insightful, because I think a lot of people just don't realize that when we walk into a grocery store, we're kind of being tricked, right? Like, we're kind of being tricked by the food industry and how they market to us. All of that food that's in a box is really engineered for us to keep coming back for more.
Right.
And so it's a really good documentary to show that, like, these are labeled healthy, but they're not necessarily, low in sugar. It's
Right.
just, yeah. And so I recommend that to anyone who's like trying to figure out, what's the right way for them to eat, or just to become a little bit more informed on what we put in our food. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. Another thing I'm picking up on with your story is that this is an investigative and a continuous process. You
Oh,
mentioned
100%.
peeling back the, layers of the onion. Um, Functional medicine is so wonderful because there are so many avenues. It's like you go down one direction, and if this doesn't work, there's so many other things that you can still look at. And sometimes, yes, that's overwhelming. It's like, okay, there's all these things, But it is, for me at least, it's very encouraging and kind of keeps me in a place of hope,
Yeah.
because it's not like you take this pill and if it doesn't work, I'm sorry, I have nothing else for you. It's like, well, this didn't work. We tried this for a significant amount of time, not 30 days, but significant amount of time. And once we see that this maybe is working, or maybe there needs to be something else, there's another step that we need to take. Well, let's do that. Let's try that. And so it is this really kind of rich, comprehensive systems approach of investigation. And, you really, in your story, I'm hearing that very loud and clear,
Yeah.
with what you did.
Yeah. One of the things that really brought me to functional health was when I was going through my depression. I was on 13 different prescription drugs until I found one that I didn't have so many side effects. And
Mhm.
there's a time and a place for antidepressants. I'm not anti that, but something I noticed was that none of the doctors asked me, what are you eating? Are you moving every day? What's your environment like at home? What's your work like? Until I went to a functional medicine doctor, and it was like all about lifestyle. And I was like,
Right.
oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Thank you for asking. And in that
Yeah.
process of getting off meds at the beginning of 2015, when I did the detox, I also read a book called The Depression Cure, which I'm not a fan of the name because there's no one cure all for depression, but it talks
Right.
about 6 areas that you can really try to use, implement in your life that would be beneficial to keep depression at bay. And one of the things my therapist said to me was, Nicholle, as you're going through this process, don't give up on the first thing you try. You have to try everything. You just got to
Mm.
keep trying and trying until you find that thing that
Mhm.
helps you get out of that dark hole. And I did. I found that thing by detoxing my diet, by, following this book, The Depression Cure. I implemented omega-3s into my diet. I started getting engaged in my community. And I remember one day thinking, as I'm putting on my workout clothes to get movement in as my medicine, I was like, I don't want to work out. I mean, I was just feeling crappy, but within 10 minutes of
Yeah.
going on my walk, I was like, I feel better. Right.
Mhm.
And I know it's different for everyone, and everyone's in a different stage in their depression and anxiety. So, it's not a one-time cure all, but I think there's a huge narrative there, theme that it's like, keep trying. Just
Mhm.
there's hope on the other end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
There's light on the end at the end. I can't even talk right now. At the end of the tunnel, and you just got to keep taking steps forward.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something else, I keep hearing from you is your love of people,
Mm,
your love of community, having a support system. Even in what you were talking about with having your retail stores, that you're bringing people in, you're making sure that they are having a pleasurable experience, that they're enjoying
yeah.
their summer and things like that. So how would
Yeah.
you say that that really has played into your health journey?
Yeah, when I was depressed, and most depressed people who've suffered with depression can relate to this. When you're depressed, you don't want to be around anybody. You kind of want to
Mm.
just like stay in bed and hide and not see the world. So there's an organization called To Write Love on Our Arms, and they work with suicide and depression and anxiety and mental illnesses. And one of the things they always reminded me was that people need other people. So I knew, even though I was like in that dark cloud, that I did need other people. And so I built a board of directors for myself in my health journey. Like, who can I call when I'm feeling really, really bad?
Mm.
And that was really helpful because they all knew their role. They knew that they needed to pick up or at least call me back within an hour or two. And I asked them permission, like, hey, would you like to be on my board of directors, my board of help when I'm in a downtime? And as I've gotten healthy, and as I've now what I call myself in remission from depression and EOE, I love group coaching. I find that people in this world, especially after COVID, are so disconnected. And when we lose connection and joy, that's when we fall into bad habits and our addictions and, things that we don't want to be doing. Right. And so I run a self-care and accountability group, and it's super fun. And I'm also currently right now working on a group called, actually haven't nailed down the name, but it's like Winter is Coming or Cleanse Your Mind. But it's basically how to stay on top of seasonal depression, because as you know, I live in the state of Alaska where it's dark all the time.
Yeah.
So I think, people definitely need other people, and it can be really hard and scary to be vulnerable with what's going on with you. But the minute you do, it allows other people to be vulnerable, and you would be it's just so many people are going through the same thing, so yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And, I think that there is something to be said for somebody who is willing to open up and ask for help. Because there are a lot of people in our environments that maybe want to help, but they're not really sure if it's okay, or they don't really know how to approach the situation. And so I think on both sides, people are wanting help and people want to help. And so, sometimes if the person who's needing that just opens up and says, like you did, contacts the people that are in their close circle and says, this is what's going on. I would love to connect with you, or I would love, for you to be my lifeline in this situation. Is that okay? I think that, really allows for people to say, yes, I would love to help. I just didn't know if it was okay to ask, or, those types of things. So, yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. So now that you have been through this process, you said this started in 2015 with your trip and going through the detox, and, then really digging in throughout that whole year. What are some things that you've seen improve over this past, 7 years or so?
In my personal journey?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's so many factors that I've added to my life. Like I'm also a certified meditation teacher, which makes me laugh when I say that, because I was a girl that couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes. I'm just like all over. So when I say that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty crazy that I have that sense of mindfulness now. So, implementing meditation has helped me be less reactive. My relationships are stronger. My stress levels, I think I was stressed for so long, I thought that was normal. And now it's like, whoa, I was unhealthy stressed. How did I do that? My cortisol levels were just this all the time. So I think there's this huge awareness for me now of, oh, I'm putting too much on my plate right now, and being able to say, nope, I can't do that. And not feel this guilt or shame around it, especially in my professional life. And just putting myself on the top of my own to-do list, because my work is going to be there tomorrow, but my health won't be if I don't take care of it. And I kind of learned that the hard way, right? And I don't want that for others. It's like, if we start taking care of ourselves, then everything else kind of seems to fall into place much more easily. Yeah.
I was having a conversation, actually the last 3 convos I've had now have all that very thing has come into play in every single one. It's okay to prioritize your own health, and then take steps to, work on the other things in your life. Or maybe if you're a mom, right? It's okay to prioritize your health. It's okay to say, I need 5 minutes. It's okay to say no, right? It's okay to do that. And then, work on your those close circle relationships, or to do the work, or whatever it is. But I think so many times we want to give and give and give and put out and do and do and do, because that's the culture we live in. And then once we do, it's like we're 3 years into it and we are burnt. We have nothing left to give. our blood work is like, what has happened to you? Whatever it is. There are just things that we just have to, in order to really stay grounded and centered and in the best possible way that we can serve ourselves, and then we can serve others.
Right. Yeah. I think for type A personalities and high achievers, that's something you have to learn. I had my very first business as a 12-year-old. I had helping hands. I was a maid in my community. And, I think back to it and it's like, if I wasn't achieving, that was like a reflection of my self-worth. Right. And so as I've gone in this journey, working with my therapist, and it's like, you kind of have to learn how to say no. And I remember the very first time I did, I was like, I'm not going to take that project on. Thank you for the opportunity. And it felt so foreign to me. And there was this part of me that was like, they're going to be mad, or, oh no, and I was so proud of myself because they're like, okay. And I was like, really? That's it? So I think as type A high achieving people, it's like, it's okay. It's okay not to be doing and just to be. And that's, definitely something that I've had to learn.
Yeah. I have a similar experience. So my career has been in higher education. I've been a professor for 20 years. And several years ago, I realized that I needed to take a day off. I needed to truly observe a Sabbath, because as a teacher, I had to be constantly working, answering emails, grading, making tests, preparing for class, all the things. And I was giving so much out, and I wasn't taking a day off. And it was really wreaking havoc on me. And I didn't realize it at the time. But now when I look back, I'm like, man, that was just not a good decision. But once I decided to say, okay, I'm taking Sundays off, and I actually put it in my syllabus, to tell my students, you're not going to hear back from me. And the first day of class, I would say, I would love for you to email me all weekend long. You do that, but you are not going to hear back from me. If you get to me later on Saturday, Monday morning is the first time you'll hear back. And I remember going in and thinking, I'm going to get in so much trouble for, like, I was sweating, I'm going to get in so much trouble for this. And, they're going to think that I'm ignoring them and that I don't like them. And, my department chair is not going to like this. And once I began doing it, my students were like, good for you. My students said that, and I thought, okay, this is going to work. And since then, it has really been smooth sailing. And it's just been a really cool thing to be able to have some downtime and not have to worry about what I need to get done. What do I need to get done? What I need to get done is relaxing.
Yeah.
That's what I need to get done.
That's definitely a priority on my to-do list, is where's my self-care. It reminds me too, that story you just told of, like, when we're little kids, we need boundaries, right? And we need nighttime routines and AM routines to kind of get us going. And I feel like as adults, we need the same thing. And if we can create those healthy boundaries for ourselves, it just makes life so much more easier. And if we can take care of ourselves and get good night's sleep, it's, we're just like kids. When did that stop? Oh, it's because life came in and told us we have to do. And it's like, no, we don't.
Right. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's so funny. I hadn't thought of that, but now that's a great thought. I will definitely hold on to that. Yeah. So how are you doing in terms of your EOE? Is that under control? How are you feeling?
Yeah, for the most part, it is. Every once in a while, like actually just this morning, I had a smoothie and my throat started to feel a little bit hurt, like painful. And I thought, oh, what was in there? And I will just navigate it. I'll start to look at all the ingredients I put in there and see what triggered it. And it could have been something from last night, and all of a sudden it's flaring up now. But for the most part, I don't have flare-ups anymore. I don't have heartburn anymore because I avoid all my trigger foods, which are quite a few, like all the best foods, like eggs and avocado and spinach, like all these amazing good foods for you. And I can't eat them, but that's okay. I can eat a lot of other foods. So yeah, for the most part, it's great. I go in maybe every couple of years to get an endoscopy to check my my white blood cell levels, and they just kind of make sure that I'm not too high. And
Right.
yeah.
Well, that is so wonderful to hear. And I just want to say you are such a delight to talk with. I really enjoyed hearing your story, and hearing about your journey. And I'm sure there are others out there who are maybe wanting to know a little bit more, maybe wanting to connect with you directly. So how can they do that?
Yeah, my business is called Colby Coaching. Cole is my nickname. A lot of people call me Cole. And then B, like as in a bumblebee, at coaching. So you can go to colbycoaching.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at I am Colby. And yeah, those are probably my two best contacts. And on my website, you can see all about my one-on-one coaching, my group coaching. And if you are, of course, in my tiny town, you can work out with me at the rec center and attend my classes at the library.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here, guys. Go check out Colby Coaching and follow her on social media. And again, thank you so much, Nicholle, for
Yeah.
joining me for this convo and sharing so openly about your story. And for everybody who is watching, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the convos. And I will see you next time. Bye.